Hi, this is David with David's Tutorials, and today I'm going to show you how to make the absolute best bacon you've ever had in your life. By this, I mean a way to cook the bacon, not using any additives, add-ons, spices, sugars, or other non-bacon stuff. It's just a way to cook bacon that I promise will come out better than any pan-fried or microwave bacon you've ever tasted. For my friends out there who might not eat regular bacon for one reason or another, I've tried this with turkey bacon as well, and it works. It's just not as good as regular bacon. The first thing you need to do is go buy some thick sliced bacon. I usually get Wright's brand, but you can try out whatever brands you have available until you find the one that works best for you. Interestingly, the thick sliced bacon I buy at the supermarket is not as thick as the thick sliced bacon of the exact same brand I get at a big box store. The bigger store somehow has thicker bacon. This makes a difference in how long you cook it. Thicker bacon takes longer. I usually buy a 2-pound package. At the big box store, they come in double 2-pound packs, so I separate them and cook only 1 pack per cooking session. The second thing to do is to turn your oven on to 345 degrees and let it preheat. I've tried many different temperatures from 300 degrees to 400 degrees and even above, and have found 345 degrees works best for me. I also check that the oven rack is placed just below the center level. The next thing you need to do is line a couple of quarter sheet pans. That's what some people call a cookie sheet with a rim and others call a jelly roll pan. Line 2 of them with heavy duty foil. I get the wide kind of foil because the width of the foil covers almost the whole length of the pan. I always leave the foil bent up on all 4 edges inside the pan to contain the melted bacon fat. If you do this carefully, the foil will contain all the grease and you won't have to clean the pan. Most people will agree that less cleaning is a good thing. After the pans are ready, I open the pack of bacon and count the strips. I do this so I'll know how many strips of bacon to put into each pan. Generally, I'll get somewhere between 16 and maybe 22 strips of bacon per 2-pound pack. I'll put half of the strips onto each pan, and if it's an odd number of strips, I'll put the greater number into the first pan, just in case I miscounted. As I lay out the strips in the pan, I pay attention to 2 things. The first is that every slab of bacon has a fat side and a lean side. It is important to keep the lean side of all the strips oriented to the same end of the pan. This is because when bacon cooks, the lean part tends to shrink and the fat part doesn't. This will cause the bacon to bend into a curve, and we want all the curves to be oriented in the same direction. The other thing I watch as I place the strips into the pan is to alternate which side is up. This is particularly important when one end of the strips is narrower than the other, or when the lean sections are only in one end of the strips. Alternating ends will allow the bacon to be situated in the pan more evenly. The way I track this is by putting the end of the strip in my right hand close to me with one strip and then far away from me with the next. Once all the bacon strips are in the first pan, I place the pan into the preheated oven and set my timer for 20 minutes. You should always make it a rule whenever you put anything into the oven, the very next step is to set your timer. Make this a habit. After placing the first sheet into the oven, I put the remaining bacon back into the refrigerator because I want the second batch to start at about the same temperature as the first. When the timer goes off, I remove the pan from the oven. Then I use 2 forks to loosen each strip of bacon, and if there's any severe curving, I will try to make the curved strips straighter. Bacon strips will frequently stick to the foil or to each other, and loosening them at this stage makes it much easier to remove them later. Now, I got to tell you, use caution and don't let the tips of the fork tines touch the foil. I cannot tell you how many times I have accidentally poked a hole in the foil before I learned this rule. If you poke a hole in the foil, it's not the worst thing in the world, but you'll definitely have a lot more cleanup to do. After all the strips are loosened and straightened if needed, I rotate the pan 180 degrees because no oven always heats evenly, and then I put it back into the oven. How long it goes back in for the second session is pretty much an estimate based on experience. If the bacon looks pretty much done, I will put it back in for 5 to 7 minutes more. If it's starting to brown but not close to done, I'll put it back in for 8 to maybe 11 minutes more. If it's really thick bacon and looks only about 2/3 done, I might even put it back in for 12 minutes or even more. You'll just have to experiment to get your own feel for this, but at least now you have some guidance for a starting point. In any case, set your timer for a few minutes less than your estimate and check it when the timer goes off. When it does go off and you check it, you are fully expecting to leave the bacon in the oven a few more minutes. While the bacon is cooking on its second shift, set up the cooling area and put out the strips for the second batch. For a cooling area, I put out a wooden cutting board onto which I can put the hot bacon pan when it comes out of the oven and keep it off the counter. I also get a regular cookie sheet and line it with several plies of paper towels. The paper towels will absorb some of the draining bacon fat, and the cookie sheet keeps that grease off the countertop. Finally, I put out a storage container into which I will put the bacon strips after they have cooled. After the cooling area is set up, I then place the second batch of bacon strips onto the second baking pan using the same techniques I used for the first pan. The way I judge when the bacon is done is that it should be just starting to get stiff. That is, when I lift it with a fork, it should not be floppy on either side of the fork, but should show some firmness. It should also be a nice medium brown. If the color starts edging into darker brown, it's probably starting to get overdone. When the bacon is done, I remove it from the oven, place the pan on the cutting board, then immediately put the second pan into the oven and set the timer for 20 minutes. After a few minutes of cooling, I use the two forks to remove the cooked strips from the pan and place them onto the waiting paper towels. With the second pan in the oven, cook it just like the first pan. When the second pan has had the strips loosened and straightened and has been rotated and placed back into the oven, that's when you want to move the cooled first batch into the storage container to make room for the second batch when it's ready to cool. Finish the second batch just as you did the first, and if you have any bacon left over after snitching while it's still warm, you can then store the remainder in the refrigerator and heat it up later in the microwave. Using this technique, cleanup is amazingly easy. If you've been careful not to puncture your foil, you can let the pan sit there until the grease solidifies, then fold up the foil and throw it away. You also throw away the paper towels used for cooling, then all that remains to be washed are the two forks and the cookie sheet from the cooling area. Try this and let us know down in the comment section below how it works for you. Let us know how you like bacon fixed this way, and definitely let us know if you found an even better way to cook bacon. Please give this video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to be notified whenever we post another great new video on David's Tutorials.